everyone. Happy first Sunday of the NFL season. I'm actually filming this in between the games, and this is a video I wanted to get out before my next weekly movie television show review video. And originally this video was supposed to be my next Nitro retrospective, which would have covered the first half of 1998, but given current events, I decided to push that video back to next week, so we'll be getting that one next week. Because I realized that I had never talked about the Super Tuesday NXT shows and its role in the larger discussion of the Wednesday Night Wars and the ratings between AEW and NXT, and what the future should be for both brands in this Wednesday Night War. And so I guess I'll just go ahead and get started with that right now. Just keep in mind, my next WCW video is coming later this week, so be on the lookout for that. But NXT and AEW, I guess I'll start by talking about the Super Tuesday NXT shows. Overall, I thought they were good. I thought that they were going to go for straight up free pay-per-view with them, which they kind of did, but it wasn't like the entire show was nothing but great matches. They kind of like, they had their squash matches where they needed to, and I'm not going to go bit for bit, match for match, segment by segment, but I will say I wasn't a huge fan of the four-way Iron Man match because I think the concept is just silly, and people seem shocked that it ended in a tie, and I'm like, dude, that match type is straight up designed to have a tie, like something like that. It just felt very like, I don't know, it felt cut from the same cloth as things like the Scramble match and those type of things that I wasn't a huge fan of. So, I didn't hate the match or anything. I just didn't. It was like, it was, way too long and way too many segments of two guys fighting in the ring and everybody else outside the ring, which almost every multi-man match does these days. And it just kind of was what it was, and it ended in a way that I completely expected. Actually, if they wanted to resolve the controversy, what I would have done is do what the NFL does and look for a tiebreaker. Like, if there's a tie in the division, they'll take the team that has the better record within the division and move them on to the divisional championship or something like that. Or the win-loss record against each other to be like a tiebreaker in that case. So I would have done is like, all right, I'm trying to remember who it was. I think Adam Cole had pinned Finn Balor, and not vice versa. Again, my memory might be a little shoddy there. People who remember the match better will be able to tell me. But if that's the case, then I feel like, all right, in a tie, you can do a tiebreaker based on who pinned the other during the match. But I wasn't paying close enough attention to keep track of that myself. But that's one way they could have done a tiebreaker. But then again, I'm expecting like I'm probably way, way, way overthinking it. So, anyways, we got the follow-up match in the opening segment of the next Super Tuesday episode, and that was pretty good. We now have Finn Balor as NXT champion again, which kind of feels like a step backwards, because it's like Finn Balor almost feels like a relic from a different era of NXT. Not saying he's bad or anything. It's just like, we just had Keith Lee, who was like this exciting new guy, and you moved him up to the main roster as quickly as you could. And we had Karrion Kross, who's this big monster man, which NXT's hasn't really specialized in those throughout their history. So it would have been cool to see, but he gets hurt, so them's the breaks. So I think it's a fine decision for now. I just hope that they're able to kind of right the ship that Karrion Kross's injury kind of put them in. So hopefully they can right the ship and find something interesting and exciting to do with this. It feels like an Adam Cole face turn is coming, and he's going to break away from the Undisputed Era as they probably turn on him, which that could lead to some really good stuff. I'll say it again. I'm still not digging Johnny Gargano as a heel or Candice LeRae. I don't dig it. I don't get it. I don't like it. I just don't. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me, brother. Doesn't work for me. I enjoyed the cage match. It was nice to see Rhea Ripley being kind of a badass again. It was nice to see a women's match. That was kind of a bruiser Haas match, so that was fun to see, and it was enjoyable. I thought both shows were enjoyable. And the follow-up, the All-Out Fallout show on AEW Dynamite this week, I thought set up some good things. It also had a few weird things, like the Cody announcement thing was a little strange. I don't mind that they're doing, like, Cody's, like, hosting this other show or something. I think cross-promotional stuff is great, and I'm totally cool with that. I just thought the way they handled the announcement was a little weird, because we haven't seen Cody in weeks, not since Brody Lee beat the crap out of him. And when they announced him during the show, it's like, an announcement is coming from Cody Rhodes at the end of the show. And I'm like, holy shit, I want to see what Cody has to say. And then it turns out to be something completely unrelated to AEW. I was like, and the show looks cool. I mean, it looks like America's Got Talent for crazy, fucked up psycho people, but it looks cool, but I was just like, I probably would have phrased that a little differently than they did, because it raised certain, like, storyline expectations for me, and then it turned out to have absolutely nothing to do with the storylines. I thought Dustin and Brody had a good match for the TV title, and I like they seem to be heading in the direction of, like, a dark Elite, or a heel version of the Elite. Kenny Omega's wanting to go off on his own. The Bucks seem really frustrated, and they super kicked out that backstage and now Alex Marvez, I think his name is. I'm sorry if I butchered that. And you got Hangman, who's kind of in limbo right now. Cody can't win the world title and got destroyed a couple weeks ago. So it seems like there's a possibility where the Elite are going to be like, all right, no more Mr. Nice Guy. We're going to take what's ours. And, the Bucks are going to take those tag titles. Omega's going to try and become the man. And Cody might be like the evil authority figure or something like that in the group. And Hangman's going to have to make a choice between where he stands. And a heel version of the Elite might be like a hot angle for them to dive into, and might give them a lot of fresh matchups and fresh directions. So I'm excited to see how that all plays out, because I think there's a lot of interesting things they can do with that. So they seem to be putting the building blocks in place while also setting up other things like Moxley versus Lance Archer for the anniversary show, which could be cool. I'm looking forward to that, especially since Mox and Archer have really good chemistry with each other. I've seen their stuff before in New Japan, and it's really, really good. So some stuff to look forward to. One thing I wasn't too keen on, I don't want to say I didn't like it, but the debut of Rusev, Miro, I should say, which got a lot of attention and got a lot of people jazzed up. It was weird how they did it, because they debuted him as the best man to Kip Sabian in his wedding. And I'm like, that's a weird way to debut a star coming from another company. I think Rusev is a good pickup. I think he's a guy that I think most people agree had some potential in WWE and just wasn't allowed to be everything that he could have been. And he took a gimmick that in a lot of ways was like old hat, and he made it his own and got it over with the evil foreigner bit. And then he got the Rusev Day thing over, which got over completely by accident, and that worked out for him, but they just never ran all the way with him, and it felt weird. I mean, you look at him make that WrestleMania entrance where he came out on the tank, and he looks like a superstar. And that seemed to be his peak. They never really did anything substantial with him ever again. And if they tried to, it was garbage. Like any kind of love triangle bit with Lana or whatever, that stupid stuff they were doing. So, but they debuted him here as kind of like I don't want to say a comedy gimmick, but they're placing him with like one of the sillier low-card acts in Kip Sabian. And he's going to be linked to him, which is a little odd. Now, granted, every other big monster man they debuted, they come in and just immediately destroy everybody, whether it be Brody Lee or Lance Archer or Brian Cage. And it's like, all right, you want to vary it up a little bit. You don't want to be too similar with every single big guy that you bring in. But it just felt a little off, like how they brought him in. But I don't want to crap on it yet until we see where they go with it. So we'll see where they go with it. I do think it was important after All Out, which got AEW some negative press, both for the quality of the show and the Matt Hardy incident, that they kind of bounced back a little bit with Dynamite, and they did. They bounced back with a solid show, and that set up some things, and hopefully will move things in a better direction moving forward. But the real takeaway is that both NXT and AEW have been doing better when they're not going head-to-head in the ratings. AEW broke 1 million viewers this week, and NXT both weeks got into that 800,000 plus range, which is higher for them. And that's like typical, as far as I can tell, that's like typical AEW numbers. And so both of them went up. Not substantially or anything, but enough to kind of raise eyebrows. And this brings in the whole debate. It's like, okay, should there be a Wednesday Night War, and should one of the shows move, specifically NXT? Should NXT move to Tuesday nights? Because it seems to be a better night for everybody involved. And I think there's a sizable portion of the audience that does watch both shows. And instead of like getting people to change back and forth between the two shows, and you know, let's be honest, I mean, Dynamite is good and NXT is good. It's not the same as, it's not as cutting edge, and neither show is as cutting edge or as cool as WCW Nitro or WWE Raw were in 97, 98, where switching back and forth between the two shows was almost a must because you didn't know what either show was going to do. I mean, you've got Hogan Sting versus, you've got Sting versus the NWO going on one show, and you've got the rise of Stone Cold Steve Austin on the other show, and DX and the Undertaker Kane thing and all this other stuff. I mean, it's which show do you watch? I mean, Jesus, both shows are amazing. So, and here it's just kind of like they're both probably both Dynamite and NXT. I think are in that B range where it's like they're solid views. As a wrestling fan, I'm overall happy with both shows, but they're not like can't miss television, if that makes any sense. Especially in the internet age where I can just pretty much, I basically most of the time I watch NXT on the network. That's been my go-to for years. It's funny because Triple H made the comments like, well, we were on Wednesday nights first or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but I never watched you on Wednesdays. I always watched NXT on Saturdays. Because a few years ago, NXT was, I could either watch NXT Live or I could watch Lucha Underground. I'm like, no, I'm watching Lucha Underground. That's the show. NXT can wait until Saturday. That's fine. And so, like, I think in its entire history, I've only watched NXT on Wednesday night once, and that was like the first night they were on USA, the debut. So, I'm not trying to put down both shows, but it's like wrestling in general is not as exciting as it was in 97, 98. So trying to get that like channel flipping audience and, it only really works if both shows are just red flipping hot. And I don't think either show is. I think both shows are perfectly serviceable in today's wrestling climate, but both could also be better. It's just a matter of finding the right creative and the right angle to really drive the direction of both shows. And, so I think putting them head to head with each other kind of prevents them from doing that because they're constantly in a rat race with each other, putting on and NXT is more guilty of this than AEW is, but putting on pay-per-view quality matches on TV every week and chase that whole like chasing star ratings thing, which I've always said is going to be a problem because again, going back to the Monday Night Wars period, a lot of what they did wasn't so much putting on high quality matches, although they did. WCW definitely did with Hogan versus Luger, Hogan versus Goldberg, and WWF did. I mean, in 98, 99, the WWF title changed hands on TV more times than in any other point in the entire history of the company. But it was also the exciting angles and the promos that were able to drive a lot of that as well. And that's something that's lacking in modern day wrestling, with few exceptions. Like MJF, I could watch that dude talk all day long, but it's I think both shows would benefit from being on different nights so that they would be allowed to like let things breathe a little bit better and find themselves and find something that works rather than just trying to hit a home run with high caliber matches every single week. I think being on different nights allows them to kind of catch their breath and try and figure out like the nuances of the characters and the stories that they're trying to tell and make sure that they all work rather than kind of hot-shotting things. And I think the fact that both ratings went up is a sign that, like, yeah, them being against each other is actually hurting both shows rather than helping them. Although I could see Vince McMahon looking at the number that AEW Dynamite got this week with over 1 million viewers and being like, God damn it, we got to get NXT back on Wednesdays. Like, I think it's like, because Dynamite did well, he's going to want to, like, go hardcore. It's like, nope, he's going to double down on putting NXT on Wednesday nights to make sure that AEW stays down in the ground. No, do not let them grow. We need to split the audience. And it's better to put on a show because it really does feel like NXT is being used as a weapon to keep AEW from growing, which is why that they showed up on USA on Wednesday nights in the first place. That's my take, and I'm sticking by it. And I think looking at last week's numbers, I think Vince is just going to be even more steadfast about putting NXT on Wednesday nights and use it as a weapon against AEW when it could be its own thing. Just let it be its own thing. And again, like going back to the Monday Night Wars, that was a magical time that I don't know if can ever be recaptured. And I don't see how it can be recaptured in today's climate. I really don't, because we're just WWE puts out so much content that it's just impossible to follow it all anyway. It's not like staying home to watch wrestling any night of the week is that novel of a thing, because there's just so much of it out there right now. It's just a completely different time from what it was back then. Back then, Nitro and Raw were doing things that you'd never seen before, and now we're kind of living in an era where we've seen it all done before, so trying to find something new to do is a little bit harder. And it makes it harder on both shows to be exciting when they're constantly competing against each other for numbers and ratings. So, my take, I feel like NXT would be better served moving to Tuesdays. That probably means Impact would probably have to scurry over to Thursdays, although I don't know if it would even make a difference in Impact's numbers. I really don't. But that would be interesting to have like a wrestling show every night of the week. That would be really bizarre to see that. But yeah, I say move NXT to Tuesdays and just keep on trucking from there. I think that would allow both shows to grow because, as we've seen, like AEW has been the stronger one in the ratings for most of the time in the Wednesday Night Wars period. So I say move NXT to Tuesdays and just let both shows keep on growing. And I'd probably feel more inclined I would be more inclined to watch NXT if it was live on Tuesdays instead of putting up on Wednesdays where I'm going to watch Dynamite and then just kind of save NXT for Saturday, which is what I've been doing. I'd be more inclined to stay up to date on NXT live as the show's happening if it's on a different night from AEW. And the reason I watch AEW over NXT is I want something else to succeed other than WWE. And at the end of the day, NXT is just another brand of the WWE. It's their better brand of the three, but it's just another WWE show. And I want something other than the WWE to exist and to thrive and survive. And that, that's not going to happen if I don't put my money where my mouth is and support the show that I do enjoy. I do enjoy Dynamite. It could be better. It could definitely be better. But I would like to see both shows grow because I think putting NXT up against AEW kind of robbed NXT of what made that show special, which was one of the things I liked about NXT. It's like, look, it's an hour long. It's mostly squash matches and promos. They don't blow their wad every week, and they slowly but surely build to the takeover specials, which knock my socks off. And here it's like almost every week is trying to be a takeover special, and that's gonna burn out pretty quickly. And I don't think they've completely burned themselves out, but it doesn't have the same excitement that it used to, where I could see all the building blocks being put into place, and then boom, they kill it at the takeover special. Now it's just kind of like they're trying every week to deliver a home run, and it's hard to do, and it's hard to keep things fresh when you do that. And again, I think it's further evidence that moving NXT to a different night would be beneficial to both AEW and NXT as brands and allow them to grow. But again, I think Vince is going to double down on keeping NXT on Wednesdays just to prevent AEW from growing, which that's Vince for you. That's my guess anyway. He may surprise me. Who knows? We'll find out more as the weeks and months go on. But that's all I have to say about AEW and NXT. I want to catch the Sunday night game. Before I do that, let me jump into two tournaments that are taking place. Let me pull up the cards. Okay, I'm going to start off with the bigger of the two tournaments, which is New Japan's G1 Climax, an annual event that I've really gotten into the last few years, one that I typically enjoy. God, a few months ago, I thought we're not getting the G1 Climax this year, which sucks, because it's something I look forward to every year. It's kind of like, trying to think of an apt comparison for it. It's kind of like what the Royal Rumble is to WrestleMania, where once the G1 Climax starts, it's okay, we're getting ready for Wrestle Kingdom. Here we go. Wrestle Kingdom season is starting. It's kind of got that feel to it. It's a very different concept, obviously, but it's got that same kind of taste to it where I feel like the big thing is coming soon. And with G1 Climax, it's the 30th one, and we're getting it, and they've released the blocks for the A and B blocks along with the match schedules, and I've already gone through, because I do it every year with the G1 Climax. I go through all the different G1 cards and I pick out the matches I want to watch, and there were a lot of them. I didn't take out too many matches this year, so I'm going to be watching most of the tournament. People are going on about how good the A block is, and they're not wrong. Let me read off the names. Kota Ibushi, Jeff Cobb, Kazuchika Okada, my guy, Tomohiro Ishii, Will Ospreay, who's back, Shingo Takagi, Minoru Suzuki, one of my favorites. I love that dude. Love that guy. Tai Chi, Jay White, and Yujiro Takahashi. There are a lot of matches in that A block that I really, really want to see. A lot of different diverse styles and a lot of exciting potential matchups from that list. And then you look at the B block, you've got Tanahashi, Juice Robinson, Hiroki Goto, Toru Yano, who I love watching. He is a breath of fresh air in every single one of these. I love watching him in these things because he offers something completely different from the rest of the guys in the tournament. Yoshihashi, Tetsuya Naito, Sanada, Zack Sabre Jr., one of my guys, Kenta and Evil, who's sadly probably the weakest name in this bunch, and yeah, enough said there. But, yeah, I think the whole tournament looks exciting. It's just great to be getting the G1 Climax. I am super excited to see what happens here and how we set up for Wrestle Kingdom, which I assume we're going to be getting in 2021. Here's hoping. I would think so. New Japan seems to be getting back to normalcy, which is good to see, and hopefully American wrestling isn't too far behind as far as getting... We're taking baby steps. I'm seeing babies. Like, even the NFL, like, Kansas City had a small crowd, but a crowd in their stadium this week is like, okay, we're inching ever so closely to normalcy, and that's good to see. But the New Japan G1 Climax excites me. And for the first time in forever, ROH has started something that really intrigues me, and that is they are redoing the ROH Pure Championship. They are bringing that back. Now, for those of you who don't know about the Pure Championship, it was one that ROH had years ago that I was fully in favor of because it offered... let me put it this way. It's... When you look at something like TNA's X Division, where they said it's not about weight limits... Their only definition of the division was it's not about weight limits, it's about no limits. And I'm like, okay, what the fuck does that even mean? That doesn't mean anything. It's just a generic platitude. And the only reason the X Division got over with people is because the people in it were so talented and had such great matches that it was like, well, okay, we'll forgive the fact that the division makes absolutely no sense because the matches are really good. And then once that higher class talent, like the Samoa Joes, the AJ Styles, and the Christopher Daniels kind of moved out of the division, it's suffered because then it's like, okay, now we're just a bunch of like green flip-floppy guys, or unestablished flip-floppy guys who are just having cruiserweight matches, but it's not a cruiserweight division, and they could never really get it on track after that. And one of the things I liked about the Pure title is that it's fully understood that the people who wrestle for the Pure title wrestle under completely different rules, and so it makes sense. It's like, this is a different discipline, this is a different division, it is a different style of match completely, and they define the rules. The rules are fucking important. Tag team wrestling has a completely different discipline from singles wrestling. Cruiserweight divisions have a weight limit, so it's completely different from the heavyweight division. There's got to be something of value. Even the hardcore title, it's like, look, there are rules. They can say hardcore matches have no rules, but they do have rules. The rules are no disqualifications, no countouts, falls count anywhere, and for a while, 24/7 title defenses. There are rules. And it's understood what the rules are. And with the Pure Wrestling, or the ROH Pure Championship, I have the rules pulled up here. It was, each wrestler has 3 rope breaks per match, kind of like timeouts in football. There are no closed fist punches, and there are 20 counts outside the ring. And those are the basic definitive rules for each Pure title match. And I liked it. And for me, some people said it was too hard to follow. I'm like, dude, you can't count to 3? You can't keep track of how many rope breaks anybody has? Like, to me, it was fairly simple. I thought it was easy to follow, but they're bringing that title back, and they've got a tournament. Again, very much like the G1 Climax. It's in an A block and a B block, but it's not round robin. It's single elimination. So it's going to be the A block winner versus the B block winner. We've got Jay Lethal versus Dalton Castle, David Finlay versus Rocky Romero, Fred Yeehee, I don't even know who that is, versus Silas Young, Tracy Williams versus Russ Taylor, Jonathan Grisham versus Wheeler Yuta, Delirious versus Matt Sydal, Josh Woods versus Kenny King, and PJ Black versus Tony Deppen. I'm excited that they're bringing the title back. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it, the Pure title, because, I mean, let's face it, ROH has kind of been a wounded duck ever since the Elite left. And I hate to say that, but it's true. It's once the Bucks and Cody left, so did a lot of the excitement centered around the ROH brand. And they went from... I mean, the Elite sold out that Madison Square Garden WrestleMania weekend show, even though they ultimately didn't appear on it. I mean, it was them that sold that show out, and they just happened to not be there in the company by the time the show was ready to take place. But it's... ever since they left, it's just been a downward spiral for ROH ever since, and it's just been uglier and uglier and uglier, and the show just kind of fell off a cliff. So for them to do something that catches my attention, even if it's something as simple as bringing an old title back, and in the ROH Pure title, I'm like, okay, we get Pure title matches back, that should be something, it's interesting. It's a title that I enjoyed. I think the match structure works. See, this is the opposite of like the Impact Grand Championship, which had rules. They established those rules. They stuck to those rules. The problem was, because everything was fought in rounds, none of the matches felt like they had a flow to it. It was a bunch of people who had been trained to work bell to bell, trying to adjust their style to work round to round, and because of that, none of the matches felt like they had a flow to it, so none of them got over. And so it is possible for the rules to get in the way. I talked about the scramble matches earlier. Some people would use the King of the Mountain matches as an example, and I would agree. The way too many rules in a King of the Mountain match, but I don't think the pure title ever got to a point where it was too many rules or too hard to follow. At least not for me anyway. So I'm excited they're bringing it back. It's the first time ROH has done something exciting in a dog's age. So we'll see how it all turns out. We'll see how it goes. So that's enough discussion for this week. I want to close out by saying, if you have not checked out the first episode of the Weekday Warriors of Wrestling podcast, of which I am a part of with my co-host Eric Clancy, go check that out. I will leave a link in the description. We plan on having a second episode up later this week, so be on the lookout for that. But for now, that's it. I'm done. Enjoy what's left of your weekend, and I will see you all later.